G'day everyone, welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls, and yeah, very different scene indeed. Inside the boat now, it's starting to feel like a real boat, and I've shown you little glimpses of it. Next week we're going to start to demold that boat. There's a lot coming up in this week's episode. We're going to be installing the head in the starboard side. We're going to be doing quite a lot of work in the boat, so don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, share it out. The more subscribers the better. I do have to ask if you can watch as much of it as possible. I know it's pretty tedious at times, but the more you watch, the better it is, and the more recommendations we get out in YouTube. You know, I think we're sitting at about 21,000 subscribers. I think that's absolutely incredible. A lot of people probably have bigger channels, but you know, I'm just a guy building a boat, and now Janet has basically got some big news. She's finished work full-time, and she's going to be giving me a little bit more help on the boat and become an official or unofficial apprentice. So thanks guys, let's get into it. Once I float the deck in here with the crane, I need to support it. I can't just sit it down on all the bulkheads and all the modules that I have in here, because I'm not sure they're going to fit, and to be honest, I don't want to damage anything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to float it exactly 50 centimeters higher than the gunnel, than along the edge of the hull. And very importantly, I need to have that supporting so that I can then adjust it up and down. So I've got a number of jacks that I'm building for the forward staterooms. The rear section here where I'm standing in the cockpit area here is pretty flat, so I'm going to be able to just sit it on some drums and then use some small car jacks to lift it up and down. And I'll use the longer bottle jacks up in the front there in the two front staterooms, supported on some stands so that it won't wobble or anything now. But on the sides along the gunnels, it's very important that I have a method with which to be able to control and position this perfectly, all at the same height all the way around. So what I've come up with is this. I'll just go for a walk down in here into the forward stateroom on the port side here. Now what I've come up with is, on each bulkhead I've come up with this bracket, and this is essentially a support that will hold the gunnel of the hull secure as well as the deck. The deck will sit in here, on around about 8 supports. I'll have 3 here up on each side of the hull, 2 up on the bow and 2 on the stern. But the great thing about this is I'll be able to jack the deck up around about 5 or 6 centimeters up here, and then lower these down, lower the deck down, do some initial measurements, some cuts if need to be, and then I'll be able to put them back up. And it's a pretty simple solution, and they're easy to remove. I didn't want to glass anything in place and have to remove them retrospectively at the end of the process. So you can see I've got one here at the bow, got another one here in the midsection, and there's another one right down there. So that's 3 along this hull side. Now the deck's going to be incredibly rigid because it's all foam core and it's well laid up, but I do need to make sure that I've got support all the way around so I don't get any flexing. And then I'm going to be able to use my jack arrangements on the bridge deck here in the forward staterooms and down in the back to level the whole thing up before I start to move it up and down and allow for fitment over these bulkheads. There's no real load being supported by the bulkhead, it's all going to be downward force. Perfect. Forward part of the deck. At the back it's not so bad around the cockpit area because it's only about 2 feet high, but because it's about 4 feet high up on the bow in those forward cabins, I'm going to make a couple of jacks that I can actually lift and lower, or lift and lower the deck down so I can get ultimately a perfect mate. But I've come across these stands I've got here. So these stands here, I'm going to cut down to this height and mount the bottle jacks on them with a welded piece on the top, and that'll help me to be able to facilitate the lifting. But the maximum these are going to have to handle is about probably 200 or 300 kilos. I mean, not even that, to be honest. It's going to be that sort of directed down onto the 4 points that I'm going to be jacking it up with. And then the outside timber members are going to control all the springiness of the outside of the deck. So these two brackets here are going to be nice and simple. I'm just going to put a hole through them, bolt them in place. Not going to do anything more than that. No point in welding up brackets for something that's going to be used for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Depends on how long it takes me to get the deck down. It's time for me to outline my plan for demoulding the deck and how I'm going to position it here on top of the hull. Some jack stands that are going to be positioned up here in the forward compartments and in these cabins here, and the idea will be that I'll float this deck in with the crane and sit it on the perimeter deck mounts and have it supported by these 50cm jacks. Now this is where the deck is going to sit, so it's important that I'm able to lift it at least 50 centimeters higher than that, which will match all of my other flange mounts that I've put around, and that's going to give me the ability to then be able to drop a spirit level vertically from underneath the deck once I get it all level and at the same height all the way around, and mark my bulkheads to hopefully within about half a centimeter. That should be pretty accurate. It tends to be the way that the industry does this. And I've had a number of guys, Robin Zametti from the UK, said, why don't you just have 50 centimeters high? That's exactly what I'm going to do, mate. And essentially just drop a vertical and down with a pinpoint, and I should be able to mark very accurately along all of the bulkhead lines as to where this deck's going to sit. I do actually know that this is roughly the spot here. So this has to be able to drop down to below that so that I can actually get it out. But the good thing about this jack system is I'll be able to jack it up and down, and then once I've got it in place, I'll slide it forward, disassemble it and pull it out. I did actually think about having a 44-gallon drum here with a car jack on it. Problem is I can't get the 44-gallon drum out because there's no way I can get it out of here without slicing it in half with a grinder, and I just don't want to go there. So this system will work quite well. So what I've done is I've taken the plywood blank that I had in the hatch up on the deck there to stop people falling through, and I've actually put a wooden base underneath it, and that will easily pivot to control the height of the deck. It's a pretty simple procedure, but these jacks, I'll remind you, actually belong on the truck, so I can't put them in here until I'm finished bringing this hole back into the tent where I'll be working on it with the deck in place. So I've got to physically move the truck back in, lower the jacks, then bring the jack up here and put it in here. So I've got another couple of things I'm going to do. I'm actually going to clamp some 4x2s on this center bulkhead here, on this forward bulkhead, and basically support the deck with some simple G clamps until I get my jacks in place. And down on the back there, I'm going to actually use 44-gallon drums. So there's one of these on each of the cabins up on the fore deck, or up in the front cabin. Now this jack, very importantly, must sit over the top of the support I have underneath, which is the truck with those longitudinal beams. It's very important I don't put this over here on the edge of the chamfer panel and cause any undue stress, because I'm only going to have a ton floating above us with the deck. But by the same token, if I don't support it, I could end up with some damage underlying. The head is in. My port side head is finally complete. It's not all installed, but certainly it is locked down. Janet and I spent all afternoon here yesterday making sure we had it all right. Put a number of clamps in place, and those clamps have really done the job. I've got a really good bond between the outside companion module and the bathroom, and it's solid. There's no way that's going to squeak. There's going to be no movement in it, and yeah, it's really, really good to see that complete. I'll just get all my clamps off now and take it from there. Ultimately, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, but a bit hard to hold the camera and do it at the same time. The crane's booked for this Friday morning. It's Sunday now, and I've got probably about the biggest 5 days I've put in since I demolded the hull. Got a lot to do. I've got to pull the tent down. Just sold the tent to Pete from Infinity Rigging. So if you need your rigging done, talk to him. He bought my tent. He's going to set that up for part of his rigging business. And a few issues here where it's still a bit flexible here. You can see here, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually insert foam all the way around there, and then I'll cut the door size that I want, and then I'll be putting in obviously a door jamb. So I'm going to make sure that that gap here is solid, make sure that's all done. But yeah, really nice to see that in, and it is really, really solid and absolutely no movement in it, which is exactly what I was after. Okay, that head's in. I've got to lift the starboard head out. I'm going to get it all prepped, and Janet's going to come in tomorrow. Once the epoxy's set on all of that, we'll be able to remove all the clamps and bring them over to this job here up in the starboard side. So it's a bit hard to get out this one. It's a bit hard with two people.
I said, what's it like with 1.5, because I'm a half.
Janet is not a half. I'll tell you that. Janet's as strong as I am. She just doubts herself. Yeah, you are, Dom. All right, let's go. Let's lift this one out. Get this out. I've had it in and out, God, a lot of times. But I'm going to leave the flange on here. That way I know that it's actually sitting home in its place. And I'll get it all prepped. I'm going to do a couple of marks before I lift it out with a black marker, just to know where I've got to put my epoxy, and then we'll go with that one. So we've got a temporary flooring down there. We're sort of canvassing ideas for flooring, but I'm not convinced about that colour. I don't think it's going. But it's a bit slippery. Leave that one there. That's all right. Okay, so I'm going to get over the back here, and I'm going to lift it. And if you can, when I lift it up and it gets underneath the sump there, if you can get your hands under it and just lift it straight up.
Hang on, what underwear?
See where the lip is as it lifts up. You're going to be able to get as that lifts up, you're going to be able to get your hand under it. As I get it about 2 feet up, you'll be able to get your hands under it. It's got to come straight up like an elevator.
So what am I doing? Pushing it up?
You're just lifting it,
yeah. And
as we get it up, it'll sit on the shelf over the back there, okay? Yeah. So that lip there, that toilet down the bottom there, will actually sit on the shelf. Right, so I've got a number of areas where I need to glue, and that is here, up here. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need to glue there, I don't need to glue the shelf, but I do need to glue up here, and I need to glue here. It's not as critical here, because this is going to be tabbed and filleted anyway, but it's always good to have a bit of glue. And then around the back of the shelf there, it's going to need to be glued. So I'll mark here. You can see it's actually touching down, so I made that shelf exactly the right height to make sure that it's going to touch down. The glue will embed that whole module onto that shelf, so that'll be about probably 1 inch thick by the time that goes down. And then I've got 2 areas over here where I've got these uprights, the studs that I've put in, those wall studs, and they're going to allow it to be glued to it. Okay, let's go with a lift. Let's give it a crack anyway. That's it. And if you can just help me lift it up, if we can get it up to get that shelf on. Can you get under it now? Hang on, I've got it.
What, down below?
Climb down. Can you get your hands under that? You'll be able to lift up. That's it, sit there. That's it, cool. Just rest it there for a sec. Lay it back. Just keep lifting.
Yeah.
We'll lay it back over on this bulk. Oh, I just can't put my foot on the shelf, it's not really load bearing.
Yeah, careful.
It's a scale, and I've got to clean out down in there. See the bilge, see how dirty it is?
Yeah.
I've got to clean that all. Oh, I've got a bloody glass in a pipe in there too. Oh, is that epoxy still okay?
I don't know.
That's all I need. Hey. I'm almost out of a build. It's taken me 4 years. Yeah. So I'm just going to do a little bit of flow coating around the area where all my valves and everything are going to be, and then Janet's coming up in about 45 minutes and we're going to whack that one in. That one's going to be a messy one because we've got no way of seeing where it's going. I'm just going to have to put a lot of glue down and hope that it embeds. And I'm sure it will. I think I've got it nutted out, but only time will tell. Okay, we're just about to glue this head in. I'm going to flow coat in this area here under this shelf here. This is actually where I'm going to have my three-way valve for the toilet, and there could well be some extra plumbing there depending on whether we have a small washing machine up in the bow here. I'd rather not have it in the bow, I'd rather have it down the back, obviously for weight, but that may not be an option. It all depends on how we go, whether we put a washing machine in or not, or whether I'll just make this an extra storage cabinet. But at the end of the day, a little bit of flow coat will tidy this up. It will also make it nice and bright for when I open this hatch here and be able to access things like macerator pumps and three-way valves and siphon valves, anti-siphon valves in the works. But yeah, so pretty simple, just a quick flow coat. I've actually put the bilge, the crash bilge drain is in, so that had to be glued in very quickly yesterday afternoon because I'd forgotten to do it, because it's been a long process getting the crash bulkhead moved back 20 centimetres to give me that extra access in behind the head and everything. But yeah, the head's up here, it's ready to go, and we're about to glue it in. But first things first, I'm going to get some flow coating done, and half an hour later we're going to install this head. Alright, so I've got the flow coating done. Now I've only done the whole side because the inside here is going to have a number of through holes put in it and a whole heap of plumbing clips and everything, and I want to leave it as raw glass. It just makes things a lot easier when I've already got a prep surface. If I put flow coat on, I've got to get in there and sand again. But yeah, so that's what I'd call basically a utility area up under there. There's going to be valves and taps and access to a lot of plumbing. In fact, shut-off valves and the like is going to be in there. It's all nice and bright. Now, it's not white, but certainly mist grey tends to be bright enough. Anything with a torch, just at least it's not the green. Now, I've got my bilge evacuation tube here. That actually is in the crash bulkhead. That ultimately will have a ball valve on it there. For the ability to be able to drain this crash bulkhead, I needed some way of actually draining it out rather than physically putting a hatch in the top of it and sucking the water out. I thought it was better to run it into a bilge and then pump it out over the side at a measured rate rather than sort of sucking it out from the top. But these uprights here are going to be epoxied to the side of the head. That shelf there will have a whole heap of glue, and ultimately there'll be a run of epoxy along this black line down here and along here, and that'll hold it in place. And then when I do the hatch in the floor here, I can actually get in underneath and glass the module to that shelf. I won't worry about that now. I'm just more concerned right now about getting it down and getting it in so I can get this deck off the mould. All right, let's glue in this head. There's not a lot of gluing needed for this one. We're going to try to glass it retrospectively, but anyway, I'm going to get down in here, and once I've still got raw flow coat going on here. Pull in the hole first that I've drilled, so that'll seal them, and start right at the top. Plenty of glue on here because I know these fit really well, these ones. Alright, in we go. I've got to get up. Alright, that's it. Yeah. We go like that. Slide it forward to you. Well, actually, don't slide it forward to you.
Where do you want my hands?
We want to get it almost lined up, so further over.
Where do you want my hands?
Where they are. That's alright. Slide it further over. Oh, that's just going to drop straight in.
Yeah.
Right, it's got to go.
I let
Have you got it? You got it? There,
Yeah.
just hold it for a sec. No, that's actually perfect. I can't get over there yet, but I want you to, I'll hold it. I want you to go down.
Down where?
Underneath it.
Yeah, right.
I got it.
What now?
Yep. Now get down on the floor. I need you to get under it. You're under it?
Yeah.
Right, just got to go forward a little bit, don't? No, forward a bit to you. A bit to you. Hang on, a bit to you.
Yeah.
A bit more. Hang on, just stop it there. It's sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
Just the good thing is it's not sitting in the glue. Keep going. Almost in. Almost in. Tilt it to you a bit. Right now. Get your hands out of the way. And that is how you install a head that fits perfectly. Woo! Yes! Oh, that was just like a cock in a sock. I didn't say that.
I think you need to work that out.
Wow!
Your father's an exchange.
Oh, that's perfect. And one of those clamps.
Big one?
Hold the clamp. Hold that clamp for me. Got a nice little gap here. This is going to be tabbed in glass behind me. I'm going to fill it with epoxy here. Just because this stuff's a really good gap filler. Yeah. On there. And then over in the back here, I've got a glass. You can see why I'm doing it now. Because there's not going to be any chance to do it in a couple of days' time when that deck goes on. I'm a happy boy.
You should be. You've done a good job. You won't be able to fit in it, but...
Yeah. You might, but I won't.
This is my ensuite.
Let's not talk about what bathrooms I'm allowed to use, Janet. might be a bucket on the back steps.
Oh, stop. Stop.
That bathroom is now in. Now I need to fill it and laminate and tab the back section of this here to make it all integrate. It's already glued in, but it needs now to be tabbed and laminated. So I've got a bag of filler here. This tabbing is all complete now and it's all peel plied, so this module is now physically glassed and totally structural now. It's not just glued in place, and I've got all the way down in there. So this is quite a copious cavity here that will either be used for a washing machine or additional storage. Considering what we might do with this area, I may even have a door here where I can access into here. Now, a month or so ago, you'll recall the horrendous session of trimming the flange of the deck part. It was a very dusty, very hot and very windy affair, and it's become time to release the product from the actual mould. It's not often I get overly stressed or overwrought these days. I try to take things a little bit easier considering my age and what I know now as opposed to what I thought I knew when I was younger. But it is interesting watching yourself work and observing the more unsavory character that you can become when the pressure starts to build. And it was building fast as demoulding was 4 days away. So it was time to start releasing this mould. Let's see if we can get some release on the bow. I just released all of the back, so I should be able to get a bit of release down here. I'm just starting to get it to edge open. Just crack my freaking skull. The wind's giving me the shit. And 3 months of it. Sick of it. Oh, mate, that's already cracking open. Look at that. That was easy. So what we do is just keep driving the wedges along the whole way along. Do it every 10 centimetres or so. Oh, this is going to release. Wow, that's freaking fantastic. So yeah, I've got good separation here. Absolutely expected this is very flat. Alright, check out this. So there's a gap all the way along there. That's fully released along the front there. My issue up the front here is going to be the hatches, but I'll keep going across until I get all the way across here.